Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming on. I'm just going to be here just briefly, but welcome, and welcome to all the replay viewers. I just want to come in this morning with a quick word. I was out here in this beautiful environment, just waiting on the Lord, and the Lord took me to Joshua chapter 5. And I know it's a story about Gilgal and the circumcision of the people once they crossed the Jordan River. But I just really was taken to verse 7, and in the New International Version it says, "So Joshua circumcised their sons, those who had grown up to take their fathers' places, for they had not been circumcised on the way to the promised land." And Joshua here is talking about he had led the people across the Jordan River. He had taken over the leadership from Moses. But here we see that a generation had been lost in the wilderness, and God was now saying to the people, those who had grown up to take their fathers' places. Here we see a generation, welcome. Here we see a generation of men who had to fulfill the plans and purposes of their forefathers. They had to fulfill the plans of their fathers before they could fulfill their own. So Joshua here had circumcised the men before they went out into the promised land further. And like it says in verse 7, those had grown up to take their fathers' places. The question I have for you today is, will others need to fulfill the plans and purposes that God has for them? You know, it's really interesting. The whole generation was lost in the desert. They had a plan and a purpose given to them by God. But because they had disobeyed God, because they had put aside what God had wanted for their lives, they didn't fulfill it. And it now required their children to fulfill the plans that God had for them. The question is, will we require others to fulfill the plans that God has for our lives? God has a plan and a purpose for our lives, and He wants us to fulfill the plans, those plans. He wants us to fulfill His will, not others that come after us. So this morning I want to challenge you, challenge myself as well. Will I fulfill the plans that God has for my life? Will I not expect Him to raise up somebody else to fulfill the things that He has given me to do? So this morning, as we read that verse again, and I want to read it to you in the Voice version, and it says in Joshua chapter 5 and verse 7, "It was their children and grandchildren whom He raised up to receive the land instead." Let it not be somebody else that fulfills God's purposes in our lives. Let it not be somebody else that receives the promises that God has for us. Let us fulfill His plans, His purposes in our lives. Let us see God fulfill His promises that He has given us. Let us not expect others to do what God has given us to do. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you for watching. And I pray that God will fulfill every plan and purpose in your life. God bless you, and thank you for watching.